And anybody who's going to tell you otherwise, that, vaccines are perfectly safe and there's no side effects, they're lying. But anybody who tells you that vaccines are the most dangerous thing, even these vaccines, which aren't really vaccines as we normally think of vaccination, because it only confers a limited protective benefit, right? So it really depends on the individual circumstance.
Okay, so there was a lot there, but I want to.
Yes, and we haven't even gotten into where I want to get to, which is the revolving door. But that's
okay.
That's later on. But
So
continue.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned, and if you don't want to get into it at all, I know that we want to avoid vaccines a bit, but there's one thing that you said, and you can choose to answer it or not. But you're talking about how you think that things should be data driven, and that the system as it's set up does not do that. In
No.
regard to, but you also said that you want to get things out to help people, as opposed to kind of being too hard on them on the front end. So it seems like with the vaccines, there are a lot of people complaining that we don't know what they are and what damage they could do. And in the one sense, okay, that's true.
There's some of that which is hyperbole, but continue. We've got some good data on both what's in them and also what they can do. Though I can appreciate the nuances of that concern. But most of the people shouting that are disingenuous actors.
Right.
So, but continue.
Yeah. So you've got this vaccine that's like, okay, well, we really don't know what it's going to do. But you've also got this virus that could potentially be bad. We didn't know, right? You don't know. You have to take your best guess. And it could have been bad. And the only reason people aren't being flayed right now, who took the freedom route, is because it ended up working out
because
in their
it
favor.
Worked.
The 2-point conversion was good. But at the
otherwise
same time,
you would have been, otherwise, let's lock them up and throw away the key, man.
But when we were talking, you did have reservations in the push for this being done on youth and certain demographics, because you said,
and especially pregnant women. I mean, that's the thing. I have still not seen good data, and I still see communications people from FDA pushing, that everybody should go get themselves vaccinated and boosted. And getting vaccinated is not the same as getting boosted. And this is the thing, like nuanced medical people, can tell you about the accumulated risk that is inherent in getting additional booster shots. And that somewhat depends on whether you've been exposed to the virus as well. And so, the individual risk profiles are going to vary. So there's a lot of disingenuity, if that's a word, in how a lot of this is communicated. And there's a lack of nuance projected. And the communication tends to be go out and get yourself fully vaccinated. Well, one, that's a moving target. Two, we also know that if you have natural immunity, it's actually, once you have natural immunity, it's better. Before you have natural immunity, you might be in a population that would be better served having some protection from vaccinations, but that protection wears off over time. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. You almost want, and I'm not advocating for this, but like it almost sounded like you want to go get yourself, vaccinated to blunt the effect of the virus, and then go put yourself in a position where you will get COVID so you can have some of the like longer term, benefits of immunity. But at the same time, both the vaccination and COVID itself have certain like negative health, effects. And anybody who's going to tell you otherwise, that, vaccines are perfectly safe and there's no side effects, they're lying. But anybody who tells you that vaccines are the most dangerous thing, even these vaccines, which aren't really vaccines as we normally think of vaccination, because it only confers a limited protective benefit, right? So it really depends on the individual circumstance. And this is where my view is you should have access to treatments, right? So I'm in favor of enhancing access, right? Without necessarily telling everybody that they ought to go do this, especially young people. Unless you have a 5-year-old or a child who is at some really enhanced risk, I don't know why we are pushing vaccinations in those age ranges based on data which is not very good. I mean, the data didn't meet, at least initially when we started rolling a lot of this out into children. The data did not demonstrate just sort of the basic level of what I would have expected that data to show for us to broadly expand it and recommend it in everybody. Now, it's one thing to say it's available. And so if you're high risk, you should talk with your doctor and think about going and getting it. And so we have this like lack of nuance in how we have these discussions. It's kind of an all or nothing. It's like, either all of the children should go get vaccinated, or we don't have an approval and no one can get vaccinated. It's like, that isn't, it's somewhat anti-scientific, and it's become very tribal because everybody wants a counter position. But reality is a lot more nuanced, where you say, no, I actually want there to be available treatments, recognizing that maybe we don't have really robust data yet, but we have enough data maybe that certain populations should consider it at a higher level of adoption than the general public, or at least than children generally. And I'm also I look, it's a family decision, for a lot of these things. But if we're going to vaccinate children to protect vulnerable adults, I generally see that dimly as well. There might be instances where it makes sense, but this is sort of where we've gotten to in the discourse, is that we are vaccinating children to either protect actually vulnerable adults, or to protect adults who feel vulnerable. So a lot of adults want to go get their child vaccinated because it's going to make them feel better about either their child's safety or their safety or the safety of the community, when the evidence does not necessarily support that. And so we get a lot of people making fundamentally unscientific decisions about their medical care. And it's sort of shocking that we've gotten to this point where, we have such a tribal, approach to medicine. And we see this especially at our institutions. I would say historically, FDA, has had a political bent, but it has been scientific in its approaches and its decisions. For all that I don't always agree with what FDA may do, they've tried to be at least scientific in the decisions that they made.